I don't know what's happening to me. I think I might just be getting old. Just must be getting old. First, it was I remember them tearing down the statues and thinking, yeah, your family fought for the North. Um, yeah, tear down that Robert E. Lee statue. I never understood why. It was like in Germany after the Nazis lost, they tore down all the statues. When communism fell in the Soviet Union, and I guess this is fair. I mean, I always had, I'll be honest, I always had kind of a sympathy with the old left. I don't know if I was socialist. We used to call it socialism, but now they think they call it social democracy. And I think I was like a left social democrat. I wasn't about to recreate Cuba or Yugoslavia, but I used to think that it was Great Britain. Great example. Britain in the 70s, which was a bad economic model, or Yugoslavia, which was one of the more prosperous communist countries, if you can call it that. I think mostly I understood that nationalizing industry, although the French did it with some success. Scandinavia, even 40 years ago, that was like the middle way. It wasn't quite communism, so you'd call it socialism. Although I guess it's much less that way. They privatized a lot of things. They cut back on their taxes by a lot. It's a lot less socialist. The Swedes wanted to have the unions actually control the means of production. They wanted to take union pension programs and buy the businesses that they worked in, which I think is probably the way socialists should have done it it's not have the government own a business, but like worker co-ops, like they have in Spain. They have, what is it called, Montague or Mondragon. No, this is going to be long. We haven't even hit the subject that Mondragon Co-op. Mondragon Corporation. Mondragon University is a cooperative university. It's a cooperation and federation of worker cooperatives based in the Basque region of Spain. It was founded in the town of Mondragon in 1956 by Father Jose Azmendoreita and a group of his students at a technical college he founded. Its product was paraffin heaters. A kerosene heater, also known as I used to have one of those. Yeah, they get hot. Seventh largest Spanish company in terms of asset turnover. At the end of 2016, it employed 74,000 people, 257 companies and organizations in 4 areas of activity: finance, industry, retail, and knowledge. By 2019, 81,507 people were employed. Mondragon cooperatives operate in accordance with the Statement of Cooperative Identity and maintained by the International Cooperative Alliance. So that doesn't make me a communist. I don't know if it even makes me a socialist. I think maybe they might call it mutualism, but it's kind of a centrist. Like the other thing is distributionism. That would be like, I guess that's Catholic social teaching, and that's conservative to centrist. Social market economy in Germany is an example of that. So I'm not a big fan of laissez-faire capitalism, but I'm not a communist. I guess I was always sympathetic to gay rights and minority rights. All this angry activism, though, activism. I lived in San Francisco for years. I've always been pro-choice. I worked for NARAL for a while. Did I ever actually work for any gay causes? Did I do anything on domestic partnership? Because back when I was inactive in all this, gay marriage was like, I think domestic partnership was the big deal in San Francisco, and I was always for that. I knew people that were transsexual and drag queens, and it was like, don't beat them up. Just leave them alone and let them be them. If they want to walk around in a dress, fine. And I guess I haven't changed. I'm still that person. Tolerant. Not accepting, but tolerant. You know, we were allowed to say, yeah, you're a weird ass guy, but you know what? God love you. God loves all his creatures, and so go ahead, you be you. Doesn't mean I have to accept. You didn't have to necessarily accept someone. You just had to promise not to be, sit down at the same table with them and, be nice to them as long as they were being nice. But now you've got people tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln and burning cities and defund the police, which leads to crime and homicide. All these crazy, extreme leftist. See, the left and the right, I'm beginning to realize, the further you get away from the center, the more irrational and less fact-based your people are. It's based on ideology. It's based on a set of beliefs that are inflexible. And on the left, it always ends up in disaster because it has no basis in reality. Let me just try to objectively cite something that's true and real and logical. Sweden, Finland, and maybe the Netherlands, all these Northern European liberal countries were the ones that started with transitioning kids. That was the idea. You get them young so that you can transition them so they won't feel depressed and commit suicide. Now they've stopped that because arguably that whole suicide, it's like a spoiled little kid in my mind. Well, if you don't get me more ice cream, I'm going to hold my breath and die. It's like a cheap threat. It's a stupid cheap threat. And the thing is, these kids probably are picked on, and they probably are bullied, and they probably are mistreated, and that's bad, and they should get therapy. But the thing that gets me is a lot of these kids that are being transitioned, they're just gay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let them be gay kids. But to shoot them full of hormones and to mutilate them, I won't accept it. I don't care. You can call me any name you want. But the argument, you won't use arguments anymore. You just use names. Oh, you're being harmful. You're being against our cause. You're transphobic. You just spew names like the same thing the right does. Oh, you're a communist. You're a demo rat. You're a commie fink. The Democrats are a bunch of degenerate liberals, and your name calling. You don't want to engage in a logical argument, which I would like to. But the thing is, you scream, you yell, you punch people. Please don't come around here because I own weapons and I will use them against you. All right? If you want to have an rational conversation, you confront me. Here's my little mace. It's special mace. That's Ohio. Everything's legal here. But you don't want a face full of that. You definitely don't want a face full of that. Got my baseball. I've had that baseball bat since I was 11. And other things I don't want to show you. I got a slingshot. I'm really good with it. I can hit people in the eyes, so you'll be blind. So please, don't try to confront me or protest me because I will hurt you. I will hurt you. And I think this is a make my day state. All right. So just remember that if you want to engage I don't want to engage in a face-to-face debate because I know how you people are. Like you attack people, physically attack them. And I don't know, you might have some sort of disease. I might have a disease. God, when I lived in San Francisco, it's like every other year you had to get tested for herpes and AIDS, and I haven't even had sex since 19. Oh my God, it's embarrassing to admit, but that really wasn't sex, was it? 1989? I think mostly it's just because I just became unhealthy, and I'm not willing to use, and I'm not angry about that. It's just I guess I'm more asexual than anything, so I don't really fit into any category of. And what is this cisgender thing? God, my face itches. I should really get a haircut. My head's all full. There you can't. Okay, that's it. All right. So, anyways, this just shows I have too much time on my hands. What was I trying to do? Oh yeah, the whole defund the police thing. That's obviously a disaster, and the left wing of the Democratic Party is really hurting the Democratic cause. I guess I'd say that the right wing of the Republican Party is, but I'm not so sure about that. You've got this mob of mindless zombies that's supporting Trump, and I'm so happy they arrested Trump because he broke the law. Did Biden break the law? It's obvious that Biden was negligent. It was obvious that Mike Pence was negligent. I would like Mike Pence. He seems like a nice guy, except I can't stand his stance on social issues. He's so anti-abortion, and he's so far right, and I'm not that far right. I guess maybe I'm more of a libertarian. I don't care what you do. It's just don't force. You don't have any right to force it on anybody else. I'm kind of gun control is the same thing. People don't understand. There needs everything's out of whack in this country. There needs to be laws in the United States on guns. But should we ban? I'm not even sure we should be banning assault rifles. There's another way to do it, to strictly regulate them, which they do in places like Italy and the Czech Republic or even Switzerland. In order to get a license for an automatic weapon or even a semi-automatic weapon that's like a military style, you have to get a special license. You have to, in some countries, you have to be a member of a club, and everybody in the club has to say, yeah, he's all right. One person says, he's a little, I saw him twitching. He drinks a little bit too much caffeine, and he talks to himself, and doesn't get along with his wife, and he's always complaining about foreigners. And he said my hair was too curly and my nose was too long. All of a sudden, you don't get a gun license. You don't just let people walk into Walmart or wherever. I guess Walmart doesn't sell them anymore. And get an AR-15. Should they be legal? In Italy, they have a good law. If you want an AR-15, they'll let you have one for target shooting. But they are going to vet you. They're going to ask you to be trained. They're going to ask you to see a doctor. They'll even talk to your neighbors. You can have 10-round magazines to go shoot at the paper targets with. Now, if you say, look, part of this hobby is I like the authentic experience. I mean, obviously, you're not going to give me a fully automatic weapon, but I like to do the run and gun thing, it's competitive. Could I have a 30-round magazine? And that they don't say, no, it's not banned. They'll say, 30 bullets in a magazine. Jesus, what do you need? What do you need that for? And you say, oh, so I can do a mass shooting. You're saying, self-defense. You don't need 30 rounds for self-defense. And in a lot of countries in Europe, self-defense is not an option. Although not all. Like Czech, Swiss, Italy, there are some countries where you can get a special permit, or Lithuanian. It's not that hard. Concealed carry permit, now with all the terrorism. And they just want you to get trained. It's like the average Joe can do it, but you got to be trained. You can't be an alcoholic. You can't be a druggie. You got to have your wits about you. You got to have reflexes. You have to be able to see. You can't be blind, because in this country they'll give you a concealed carry permit if you're legally blind. That's how nuts America is. I wish I had more money because I'd like to get out of here. It's just like everybody's gone nuts, left, right, in the middle. I just like to find some place where I could feel I can belong, peace and quiet, maybe preferably someplace warm. Maybe I could live in Amsterdam. That would be ideal. Just quietly live in Amsterdam or the suburbs in the summer months, and then when it gets cold in the winter, you could go down to Portugal or maybe New Zealand or Australia. I don't know what's going on down there. Some place where people are sane. Switzerland would be nice, but it's cold in Switzerland. I hear Portugal's good, but I don't know what's going on. See, a lot of these countries, there's something going on in the Anglo-Saxon countries with this transgender thing. Somehow this genie got pushed out of the bottle. It's like all of a sudden it was like, we just want to be left alone. Do away with sodomy laws. And I said, you know what? It isn't any of the government's business where you want to poke your poodle. Just stick it wherever you want to. I would probably avoid electrical sockets, but if that's what you're into, fine. I'm just not sure Medicaid should pay for that, because that's a little weird. Medicare for all. I'm all for that lefty Nordic model stuff. But here's the thing about Sweden and Finland. They're the countries that started all this progressive stuff. Um, they stopped it. They put a moratorium on it because they looked at the data, and I think they're a little less. I mean, you think, oh, the Swedes are very PC, but being Germanic, I think they're a little bit more practical. Let's not get racist, but I'm just trying to observe since I'm from that background. They're a little bit more pragmatic. Anglo-Saxon countries, especially America, it's the wild, wild west. It's all based on what you feel. Very anti-intellectual society. It's like, if your opinion, Donald Trump didn't break the law, even though we can factually prove it. The election didn't happen. Vaccines don't work. Now please, yeah, because I went after somebody because they were saying that the Nazis were like the vaccine people because they thought that Jews were diseased. Well, here's the difference. That was wrong. Jewish people don't carry diseases. I don't think illegal aliens allegedly carry disease. This is misinformation. This is a slander, what they used to call blood libel. Now compare that with COVID. They'll probably ban this video. They'll figure out some reason because Google's an idiot. But that's kind of why I'm putting it up. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying. Scientists have proven that COVID is a deadly disease, and if you have it, you are spreading a disease. And if you don't get vaccinated, you're killing people. You're killing yourself, and you're killing everybody around. Please don't compare that with rounding up the Jews and exterminating, which was horrible, which was racist. I think the Nazis were anti-vaccine, to really be honest. What the Nazis believed is life is a struggle for survival. Only the strong should survive. If you're weak and like old and you can't contribute to society anymore, they just, instead of like making special, efforts to protect you and care for you, they wanted you dead. They just want you did your work, you're obsolete now. Let's euthanize you. They did the same with the disabled and people that have can't say retard anymore, but special needs people. If you had anything really wrong with you, they'd either sterilize you or gas you. This is why it's a false analogy to compare Jewish people to people that won't get vaccinated or spreading the COVID. Jewish people were not spreading any diseases. They weren't any more diseased than anybody else. They were probably less. I mean, if you know Jewish people, a lot of them are very germophobic. Like, look at Seinfeld. I mean, I've had Woody Allen. They're a culture that is just obsessed with germs and not catching diseases. So the irony of the whole thing is, I don't mean to stereotype, but the Jewish people I know, not all of them, but a lot of them are very germophobic. They're very aware because a lot of them are smart and they know medical. There could be a disease there. There could look at this pen. You sneezed on it. There's germs on that pen. My God, did you just sneeze on that food? Is that kosher? Is that like, oh my God, it smells funny. Is it off? Very, very like almost neurotically obsessed with germs and not getting sick. So that's why it's just terrible. It's a terrible, terrible lie to say that the Jewish people carry some sort of disease and Hitler was a bad man. And to say, but this is my point, please, and please listen to everything because I'm trying to say that it's a blood libel. It's a terrible, slanderous thing to say that ugly thing. But that's the excuse they used. One of the excuses they used for why Jews had to be separated and all these terrible things they did to them. No one is suggesting that because evangelical Christians refuse to get vaccinated that we exterminate them. They had that vaccine passport. I think I still have mine. Was that legitimate? Yeah, I think that was. I really do. If you weren't going to get vaccinated, you were going to spread the disease. You were going to get it. You're going to be, because a lot of the people are poor and stupid, and they wouldn't get the vaccination, and they spread the disease, and then they got sick. The people that didn't get vaccinated were more likely to get sick and die from COVID, and were more likely to spread it to vulnerable members of their family and to spread it in society. Same thing with the mask wearers. Nobody's saying that you should be exterminated, but if you want to go out, if you wanted to go out in public and walk around and spread it because you were so ignorant and so stupid, and you flunked high school biology, you weren't smart enough to go to college, you're not knowledgeable enough to defer to people like Anthony Fauci, who's like a conservative, or who are some other ones I really liked? I don't know. There were lots of them. Maybe they did overdo it. I mean, people still wearing the masks, and I'm glad it's over. It was dumb, but it was it was a necessary dumb, you know. Better to err on the side of caution with this COVID thing, because I'm kind of germophobic. That's why I kind of identify with Woody Allen and Jerry Seinfeld, you know, this toothbrush and everything. I'm a filthy person, but I'm kind of neurotic that way too, you know. Although I would never use it. If my girlfriend dropped my toothbrush in the toilet, although, what did Jerry do? Jerry dropped it in the toilet and then he didn't tell her. Yeah, that was bad. That was bad, Jerry. But I'm going to be very careful because I don't want people to think I'm one of these right-wing whack jobs just because I'm criticizing the left-wing whack jobs. I think the thing that I object to the whole trans thing now is they're like the extreme right. They just want to call names, you know, like use the F word or the N word, and transphobic and homophobic, just because you have legitimate concerns. Look, they're not your kids. You're not raising them. You're not spending 100, 200. How much does it cost to raise a kid? It costs a lot of time and effort to raise a kid. And then they have to go, and you're ruining the public school systems because now people are going to want to just dismantle it and have everybody get a voucher and go to private schools. And my God, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what we'll have to do. If you're going to ruin public schools and here's the thing about the critical race theory. I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching that in the past there were injustices. Women were treated bad. Slavery was terribly wrong. Mexicans were treated bad. My ancestors, when they came here, were Catholic. They were German, mostly French, German. But like especially the Italians, the Irish, the Jews, they had signs that said no Italians, no Irish, no dogs, you know. And people actually said things like this. And please, again, before you censor my video, just listen. People used to say things like this. The Protestant majority that was here would say things like this. Well, you know, the Irish are filthy. At least black people have learned to keep their homes clean. Italians are all vicious. They're all in the mafia. Not all Negroes are criminals. Italians are lower than the N word. You know, they used to say things like that. So now, because you're white, you assimilated. Now it's time to pick on the black people. But at one time, when my ancestors came over here, and Germans too. I mean, Germans were Germans were like the Mexicans. They flew their own flags. They spoke their own language. They wanted to import their culture and make everybody German. That's one of the reasons why Prohibition came in, because all the brewers were Germans. All the beer was German. German beer. Budweiser, Coors, Adolf Schlitz, they're all a bunch of sauerkrauts with the beer. And Germans were considered like, there was a phobia about Germans in the late 19th and early 20th century, kind of like with the Hispanics now. You know, they're foreigners, they're rapists, they're murderers. I don't think they said that about the Germans, but we were like mechanical, you know, like a fifth column, you know, like we ate babies and you never knew what we were up to. A lot of it's actually true. But no, it isn't. Now it's like we're the biggest group. There's like a plurality. The biggest ethnic groups in the country are Germans and Irish. So what are you going to do? You can't really put us all on boats and send us back because we are the country now. So it's like, but the thing was about the Germans is, because I remember this with my grandmother, they just stopped being proud of being German. That became like, you didn't want to tell anybody you were German, you were an American, and you just shut up about it. Nobody in my family speaks German. No one in my family speaks Dutch. Did we speak French? Yeah, you don't even talk about being French. It's like, why is your nose so big? How come when the sun hits you, you get so brown? Why is your hair so freaking curly? And why do some of you have really brown hair and brown eyes and almost black hair? That doesn't. That's not very Aryan. But like most Americans, we're all like gene spliced. We're all just a mixture of different ethnic groups. We don't even know. I looked at my birth certificate and I thought it was Sands. It doesn't, and I think this is a typo, but I don't know. Someone said, you don't know. Your family seems, if you said they're very secretive, maybe they just don't want to talk about. What kind of last name is Sanos? Sanos. We were told it was Sands, it was Zens, but it says right on my birth certificate Sanos. Is that Italian? Is that Greek? Is that like Arabic or something? I don't know. That was my mom's maiden name. Verlaine is French, so it's like. But when I was in Paris, I was talking to him about how I came back looking for my German relatives and ended up in France. I said they're from Alsace-Lorraine, and he says, "Look, I'm French, right?" He says, "You think I look French?" You go, "You tell me." He says, "My family's from Syria and Tunisia." I said, "Recently?" He says, "No, 50, 100 years ago, because they used to be colonies or something like that." So nobody really knows where anybody's from, you know. So what is it? Says, what does it matter? So I was curious. He says, I get that. He says, but don't get too much into that. He says, you thought you were a German, right? You thought you were a sauerkraut. Now he didn't say that, but he says, you thought you were German, right? And I said, you're not, right? And I go, I'm French. And he says, well, I've always liked France. I always thought this is a neat place. And it was nice because you know what? This is the thing though about tribalism. We had something in common, and all of a sudden he was a little nicer to me, and I felt, why don't you sit down and have a drink? He says, I'm orchid. That's nice, but I can't do that. There was some Dutch guy, and we started talking, and I told him my dad's parents were from the Netherlands, and all of a sudden you get in a big conversation. We're there 3 or 4 hours buying each other drinks and having a good time, and talking about Arnhem and where my family was from. And then I visited. Where the hell was he from? Well, he lived in Sweden, but I don't think he ever said. He's probably from the Randstad, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Durham, Beerschoten. He was a nice guy. He was married and he had kids. He's just friendly, He wasn't like gay. He wasn't trying to hit on me. He was just they. I guess they do it at pubs. You just be a really friendly, nice person. It's funny I can't do that in the United States, but I could do it over there. I think Alexa, stop. I think I felt like a different person. I felt like I was almost home, which is a fantasy. I know it's a fantasy. I always thought, well, maybe I was born in the wrong country, and so I kind of get it. I was born in the wrong body, I should have been a woman, or I was born in the wrong body. I should have been a man. There's no surgery to make me French. They can't install French vocal cords. They have to cut all this because the French hate fat people. There's no word around it. There's no polite way to put it. They absolutely despise and are disgusted by it. They don't understand how Americans get so fat. They think it's disgraceful. The French and the Italians it's funny because their food is so greasy and fat and delicious also. The Italians eat fat, greasy foods, and so do the French, and they're both obsessed with food. But they eat small portions. They put a lot of olive oil into their food. They down it with wine, which helps digest it. And if you're going to drink, the best time to drink is with a meal, because that way you minimize the damage that. And alcohol is very. I can't. My liver is completely shot. But if you drink with food, the food will absorb the alcohol and will do a lot less damage to you. But I get it. I get the understanding of feeling that you're not where you're supposed to be. I never felt like I needed to chop my hand, because other people, I guess they're like that. They don't feel that their foot's in the private. They should have, they have this body dysphoria, where they want to, lose lots of weight, or they want to chop their legs off, or, you know, A lot of the people with the plastic surgery, they become obsessed with the plastic surgery. That's kind of the same sort of body dysmorphia or whatever it's called. And you think you're in the wrong body. I can kind of get that. I sympathize. But the best place for that is probably therapy. I think surgery is absolutely a last. I mean, if you're really, really. Well, I think surgery is mostly for people that are born intersex, like hermaphrodites. There's some people that aren't born with any gonads or both gonads, or, there's kind of like a defect. I hate to use the word defect because you're going to say that I'm being bigoted, but it's a defect. You're not one, you're not the other, you got both. Nobody knows what's going on. That's a real genetic maladjustment. But I guess there are people that are born in perfectly healthy bodies that just feel that they're the other sex. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how big a percentage of the population is. It seems weird to me. I try to understand it, but I don't think you should be teaching it in the schools and getting kids confused, because I think a lot of kids are getting confused. And that's why they stopped it in Sweden and Finland. They don't transition kids anymore because they looked at the scientific data and they were aghast. The number of people said, look, this was a mistake. I've mutilated myself and I'm miserable. Now I really want to commit suicide. It's expensive, it's tearing society apart, and it doesn't even work for most people that do it. There's a very, very small percentage of the population that this is therapeutic and necessary for. And the rest is a goddamn fad. I hate to say it about the gay thing, but I think I saw something on Bill Maher. I'm not like far right. I just think of me as a unattractive, fat, talentless Bill Maher. And they've taken surveys since I think the 80s and the 90s, and they asked people that were born before 1940, do you identify as gay? And I know there was repression, but it was like less than 1% of the population said, yeah, I'm a homosexual. Then I think by the 60s, it went up to, in the boomers of my generation, they asked my generation, and they say, what do you identify as? Say, I'm a homosexual. So that's 2% of the population now we're up to. Then Generation X, I guess I'm the oldest in the family, so my sisters and brothers' generation, that's like just 10 years later. You ask them, and that's like 5% of the population. Then you get to the millennials, the ones born in the 80s, and you're up to 10% of the population that says, yeah, I'm gay. I'm gay. Gay, trans, whatever, the whole bisexual, the whole whatever. And I think part of that is definitely that it's more acceptable, and there's, you're less likely to be beaten up or whatever by a homophobic mob. I get that. But it went from less than 1% to 10%, which is 10 times as many in a couple generations. Okay, so now we've got to the millennials and 10%. Now you've got Generation Z, which is after the millennials. So, God, 1995, 96. When is Generation Z? Keep track of all these stupid generations. Now we're with Generation C, and I've seen the statistics, but I just want to check. Generation Z. Age range. Where millennials and Generation Z begins. Okay. Anyone born... Why are you doing this? Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Since oldest among this rising... Oh, fudge. Unlike boomers, there are no comparably definitive thresholds by which later generation boundaries are defined. But for analytical purposes, we believe 1996 is a meaningful cutoff between millennials and Gen Z for a number of reasons, including key political, economic, and social factors that define millennial generation formative years. Okay, Generation Z, 7 to 22, millennials, 23 to 38. Yeah, born 1981, 76, 70, 2012. Wow, okay, gosh. Well, no, now, if you were born in 2012, you're 11. Okay, so this is a few years old. Born 1928 to 45, silent generation. Okay. Boomers, 55 to 73, 46 to 64. Generation X, 65 to 80. All right, Generation Z. Okay, if you were born in 1997, all right, well, that would make you 25 or 26. So that's, what is middle age? 30? How old are you if you're middle age? Okay, here we go. Because I like to stick to the facts. I don't like calling names, and I don't like, although I do get that way. Middle age. What is middle aged? Middle age is a period of human being beyond adulthood, but before the onset of old age. The exact range is subject to academic debate, but commonly the term used to denote the age range from about 40 to 45 to around 60 to 65, although it may begin earlier and later. 40 to 45. Okay, so you're 30, you're still, I guess you're still young at 30. So put these glasses on. I think I look cooler with them. All right. So, silent generation, less than 1%. Baby boomers, it's maybe 2%. Generation X, it's up to about 5%. Millennials, now you're pushing 10% of the population claiming to be gay. Generation Z, it's 20%. And as Bill Maher made the joke, by 2085, we're all going to be gay. So, but I don't know what's coming next. Maybe a backlash, maybe not. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, we can't have 20% of the population gay, although I guess it is affecting the birth rates. That's fine. The point that's disturbing is to go from 1% to 20% in the matter of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Jiminy Christmas. In about, 3 or... No, wait a minute. Okay. 1 generation, 2 generation, 3, 4. In 5 generations, in the course of like less than 5 generations, but these age groups, we've gone from 1% to 20%. I don't think this is just now people are free to be who they want. I think that there's a cultural push on people whenever it's like Camille Paglia said, when I was a kid, if you wanted to rebel, you smoked a little weed, you were beatnik, you let your hair grow out, or maybe you're a punk, you shaved your head in a mohawk and you wore chains. You wore outrageous clothing, you drank a little too much, you smoked a little bit too much, you didn't go to work on time. It was a phase you went through. Now you get surgery and all of a sudden you want to go back to the way you were. You want to be a little more quote unquote normal, forgive me. I mean, I'm not using the right PC words. It's not a matter of having a tattoo removed from your butt, or getting a normal haircut, or wearing clothes that fit your fat middle-aged body. You had surgery, and a lot of this is kids rebelling and feeling that they don't fit in. And I know that feeling because I never fit in. I wasn't like a nerd or a geek. Life was not pleasant. And if you're gay, that's fine. If you change your mind, that's fine. Just take the butt plug out and stop wearing pink. I don't know. But if you've had surgery, take the nose ring out, It's not the end of the world. But if you've had surgery, you've completely changed your body. You can never have kids. You've shot yourself through with hormones. And those hormones are carcinogenic, by the way. You look at studies. I'm not going to say conclusively, but they have done studies that found that if you're taking those hormones for the rest of your life, you're increasing your chances of developing cancer. So think about that if you're thinking about transitioning. Maybe you're making a big mistake. Put it off till you're in your 20s. I mean, Why even do it when you're 18? Wait till your body's fully formed, you know? You're still young. You got your whole life. It's a huge, huge decision. And I'm not saying it's wrong or immoral. God's going to send you to hell or that you're a freak. Maybe you need that. I don't know. What I do know is that I think, like Bill Maher said, and I'll admit it, I listened to him, blame him. He made a lot of sense. I think he drinks too much. And I mean, for an old guy, Alexa, how old is Bill Maher?
Bill Maher is 67 years old.
Yeah, he still drinks. He still smokes pot. I think he's too much of a hedonist. I mean, I used to be one too, but once you reach a certain age, you know, everything's shot. You got to start, you know, drinking oat milk and herbal tea and going to bed early. You had your fun, Bill. We all did. It's time for the rocking chair, you know, and easy listening music. I don't know. Maybe you can do what you want. Do what you want. But I think he made a lot of sense, and he was always very liberal. And like you said, it used to be the Christians that wanted to censor all the rock and roll music, and him. You know what he said. They were always going after him, and I guess now it's coming from the left. We've come full circle that the ones that want to do the censorship are now the leftists, because he's saying, look, to go from less than 1% of the population to 20% identifying as gay. He says, I'm going to be very careful, but I'm going to agree with him. Maybe this is kind of like a fashionable thing. This isn't science, or this isn't like climate change causing you to do this. It's a cultural thing. All of a sudden, it's a cultural thing. It's a fashionable thing to say you're gay. You know, maybe you're not an alpha male or an alpha female. All of a sudden, now you've got all these crazy incels that are angry at women in society because they're not the dominant male and they can't get women. Well, my answer to you is you're a loser, and stop blaming women. Part of the biological scientific process that women, you know, because they're physically weaker than men, but part of they play in the mating process is, since they're going to be raising kids, is he's strong. He can go out in the field and, you know, hunt. He's a good hunter. Or he works at the factory. He's a good provider. He makes a good living. He's handsome. He's got a big ego, nice, enormous ego. I like his big ego. Whatever. He seems like he could be a good provider. The kind of weak, nebbishy guys. I mean, well, now they stand a better chance because, you know, maybe accountants or you know, like Bill Gates. He wouldn't have worked very well in the factory, but, you know, you're good at business. You're good at making money. You're a good provider. So I mean, you don't have to be like a boneheaded caveman. But one of the reasons, stop blaming women because they won't date you. Obviously, there's something weird about you. Don't, you know, it's not like you can no longer hit them over the head and drag them back to your cave. You're not charming. You're not articulate. You're not making an effort to make an income or to be, what's it called, like the way men for a long way, they weren't necessarily rapey, but they were seductive. You know, they would be charming. They would kiss the woman's hand. They would take her out to dinner and tell her how beautiful she was. Get her drunk, and then, you know, but that was part of the game. I mean, being physically aggressive like that, we left that. I mean, long ago. That was not part of the little dance that people did. That was not polite. We haven't been that way for maybe 1,000, 2,000 years. That's like the barbarian comes in and carries away all the pretty girls. Even in feudalism, you had to like court. You went through a ritual. You had to prove that you were polite. You could maybe read poetry. You could be charming. Look at all the money I have. Look how handsome I am. Look at this big. Never mind. I don't want to be censored for being dirty, but you know what I mean. It's not there. Stop blaming other people. This is the other thing. I think we've gotten to the point now where everything is somebody else's fault. People, and I'm like this too. Nobody has taken responsibility for the mistakes they made. It's always somebody else's fault. It's growth. Like for me, I'm fat. There's growth hormones in the food. the American culture makes you fat, and I guess it does. But there are plenty of Americans that they exercise and they eat right and they avoid being fat. They make an effort. Did I make an effort? No. All I did was sit around and shovel bagels and cream cheese and pasta and pizza and ice cream and all these beer, and I liked vodka. But I can't do any of those things anymore. Because look at me, I weigh 400 pounds. It's disgusting. People have got to stop blaming every problem that they have, or even their culture might have, on the larger culture. It's complicated, but it's not all. You can't blame everything on the patriarchy or the evil white people. Look, if you go back 150 years, most white people were dirt poor. They were sharecroppers. They were just poor farmers. Or in Europe, they were like few peasants. They didn't have any power. They didn't go and kidnap black people from Africa. They were, up until a couple hundred years ago, they were serfs on the land. They were poor. It was that 1% they always talk about, that ruling class. And it wasn't enough of them just to treat the lower classes like trash. They had to go and find people in other cultures to treat even worse. And I don't know if they tricked us, but I mean, that's just, I hate to say it, but it's natural for people to be prejudiced against people that have from different cultures. And a lot of the thing about they're taking our jobs, let's try to realize why we let immigrants into the country in the first place. I'm just saying, not that we shouldn't have them here, but what the purpose of, they say, oh, we don't want them here. Why did they get in? Cheap labor. The powers that be, the ruling class, they like to have their hedges trimmed cheap, their oranges picked cheap, their houses cleaned cheap. They didn't want to pay white workers a decent wage. They didn't want to pay African American workers a decent wage. So they let desperate people from the third world come in and undermine the bargaining power of the people that were here. Instead of, paying somebody, well, I guess it's $20 an hour now, but I mean, when I was growing up, $10 an hour was you could live on $10 an hour. And that was like what people in unions, I mean, when I almost got a job in a factory working for Ford, it was, the union wage was $10 an hour. That was 40 years ago. But that's how much you made. You made $10 an hour, and that was like a small fortune, 20 grand a year. I don't know what that would be now with inflation calculator. $10 an hour would have to be 20 at least, maybe 25. Inflation calculator. By year. So anyways, I don't hate you. I don't want you dead. I think I would, if you want to be, I hope you have a happy, free life. And, I don't wish you to be persecuted. I think what has to happen is you got to quit teaching this leftist crap in the school, though. Even though I used to believe in it, people don't want their kids being indoctrinated. Let them send them to church. I know that then they'll be bigoted. Well, you know what? You'll have to talk to them when they're an adult. Okay, 1970. Let's say 1980. 1980. Okay. $10 an hour. 10. In 2023. Calculate. What? Okay, $10 would now be $36.91. Cumulative rate of inflation, 269. That can't be. Okay, $10 an hour in 1980 was like $36.91. Now? Oh, you understand? $10 an hour was a lot of money. It's like paying somebody $40 an hour now. Jesus. God damn. $40 an hour? Well, that can't be right. I guess that's what the inflation calculator said. Yeah, see, We've been screwed over by the people at the very top. And now they're laughing because they're pitting all of us against each other. And then this crazy identity politics stuff is not economic. It's neoliberalism. It's like, all right, well, we're not going to pay them any more money or give them a better standard of living, but we'll convince them that that this weirdness is now their lifestyle, and then people out in rural areas, I hate to say normal, but more traditional people look at them and go, oh my God, look at major portions of the pot. They're just, it's like they're from Mars. So now we got these camps. Now we got these camps ready to kill each other. And I guess the people at the top are just laughing at us. You don't see that, but I remember people talking about that back in the 80s, that they wanted to pit all the different races against each other and all the different ethnic groups and the working class. And working class people were the same way then. They wanted to keep a decent standard of living, and all the jobs were going to Japan, and now they're all going to China. And they feel like they're being replaced by immigrants. I don't want to be overly sympathetic because bigotry is bad and everything like that. But when you lose your middle class standard of living, you get angry. It's like what happened with the Nazis when the Depression hit. All of a sudden, they were poor. They didn't know where they were starving, and so they blamed all those weird ass people in Berlin that were dressing up like girls and all the decadent. Same thing happened in Germany in Berlin. There was under Weimar. It's uncanny how history repeats itself. Society collapsed. People found their scapegoat. Germany, their reputation may never recover from that. Did just absolutely unspeakable things. Although in absolute numbers, I think the communists killed more people. But the commies had more time. The Nazis were only in power for 1932. They weren't even in power for 15 years, like 13 years. The commies were in power the communists are still in power in China and in North Korea and Cuba. But their big heyday years were from like 1917 to 1990. Alexa, when did the Soviet Union fall?
The Soviet Union was dissolved on December 25, 1991. This was the day the Soviet flag was officially lowered and the Russia tricolor flag was raised in its place.
Alexa, so how long did communism last in the Soviet Union?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the Soviet Union, officially the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, was a socialist state that spanned Europe and Asia, existed for 69 years from 1922 to 1991.
Huh. All right, 75 years they had to slaughter people. And they did. The Russian Civil War killed lots of people. War communism killed a lot of people. The NEP it's kind of like what's going on in China now. They backtracked. They had a market economy. The government controlled the commanding heights, state industry, but they did allow for a lot of capitalism because, according to official Marxist doctrine, Russia was a backwards country. It was not an advanced capitalist state, and it had to develop through capitalism. So they allowed what China's doing now. They allowed capitalism return and develop so that they would have a technologically advanced society that could then transition to socialism. It's an interesting theory, but along the way we got Stalin, forced collectivization of land and industry. Nobody knows how many Ukrainians died. 3 to 6 million. Is a huge number. Nobody knows how many people Stalin killed. Nobody knows how many people Lenin killed. Trotsky killed. He was head of the Red Army, for God's sakes. He killed millions of people. That's what happens when you try to, force progress. That's why Mussolini and Hitler developed these sort of syncretic, these weird Frankenstein political ideologies that kind of aped socialism, but at the same time had communism as its direst enemy. They just figured they had to copy some aspects of it in order to defeat it. Because totalitarian society, you mobilize everything. And it was a threat. I mean, there were lots of countries that were, the Germany in 1919. I guess was it the socialists that marched on Rome, or was it the fascists? A lot of countries. That's why you got fascism, because in Spain you got the Phalangists, you got Franco, because they didn't want communism taking over. The social democrats are in charge now. But social democracy is to communism what fascism is to conservatism. I know fascism's left wing, but it really isn't. But social democracy is kind of sane, and I kind of like it. Communism is this perverted, extreme thing that's bad and does bad things. Conservatives, I don't agree with them, but you can, like in Germany, the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats would sit down and negotiate. I guess they didn't. They wouldn't do that in. Well, in the United Kingdom, up until Thatcher, they had kind of like an agreement. You want socialism, fine. We'll have socialism, like what Bismarck did. We'll have socialism, but we'll do it in a more business-like fashion because we're used to running things. We'll run all your state industry and your welfare programs, but we'll do it in a more business-like fashion. And every year from like 1945 to like 1978, 79, British society got a little more socialist and a little more socialist and a little more. Although I guess they're the lowering the tax highest tax regime from 94% down to about 83%. I guess the transition to a less punitive income tax system was already happening before Thatcher and Reagan came in to kind of stimulate the economy by freeing up a little investment capital among rich people. But the conservatives were basically, we're all. What did somebody say? We're all Keynesians now, or we're all socialists now in the '60s. It was just how do you administer this social democracy? And boy, the taxes were so high in Great Britain during that period. They've been lowered a lot since then. And all of a sudden, they went from saying we're all socialists now to we're all supply siders or free market. You don't hear the Labor Party talking about nationalizing, although I guess they were talking about nationalizing the railway industry, and the railway industry in Britain is an absolute mess, really is. Mess, mess, mess. The French never privatized their public transportation or their energy, although they did privatize other things. You can't have the government running everything because, as much as I hate to say it, it's like you can have technocrats running things, but you're going to have one group of people just running the whole economy. It's like impossible. That's asking too much of anybody. You got to have a market. You have to have competition. Maybe someday, when we have transporter beams and warp drive engines, there'll be really no point to the profit motive. The robots will be making everything, or maybe there'll be like little niche boutiques for capitalism. I don't know what the future holds. Might be a system we don't even understand. Modern capitalism has only been around since, well, basically the Dutch. They had stock markets and major corporations and tulip bulbs. That was like the 1700s. So maybe 300 or 400 years modern capitalism has been around. During the Italian Renaissance, you had the first modern banks. That's basically where it started too. So it's not really when they say capitalism has been around for thousands of years. It hasn't. Not in its present form. It was mercantilism. It was the you got to understand the king controlled everything. He controlled all the land. He controlled all the armories. You could be a merchant, but the economy was basically controlled by a very small percentage of the population. And the whole idea of free market capitalism is a very new one. It took off and did incredible things very rapidly. But its negative aspects, as far as pollution and degradation of life expectancy in Great Britain actually went down between 1820 and 1830. Life expectancy dropped from 30 years to 25, and that was because of the horrible conditions in these mill towns. They were just insufferably horrible. Now, of course, now that's all worked out, and we're sort of victims of our own success. People live almost too long, birth rates are low, everything's being automated. But between 1800 and 2000, if you look at the progress, or even like my grandfather's life, from 1903, when he was born, you had Kitty Hawk, and somebody strapped a washing machine engine to a kite, and you had flight. And then 1969, maybe when he was 66, he was still alive. He was still alive till I think 87. Well, anyways, he saw men land on the moon. Now, how amazing! And that was a government program, NASA. Yeah, that's the thing about capitalism. If you took someone from the mid to late 19th century and showed them income taxes and the Department of Sewers and Water and the Regulatory Commission, the FCC, bank regulation, labor laws, child labor laws, they would be aghast. They would think that they were living in a communist system. Obviously, we're not. But capitalism looks very, very different than it did in the mid 19th century. There's a lot more regulation, and we are much better off for it. Our water isn't polluted. Our meat isn't tainted. I mean, there was a time when milk would kill people because there were no standards. People would just, slaughterhouses were filthy, disease-ridden places. People wouldn't pasteurize milk. Milk would make people sick. The food they put cocaine in Coca-Cola, for God's sakes. You could do anything you want. Now, maybe that sounds great to you, but it was a very predatory system, and it was very dangerous, and it was very hard to keep safe. I mean, even prohibition, something like prohibition. Alcohol consumption before prohibition was about double what it was after. Prohibition ended, and the alcohol consumption was cut by about half. Levels of alcohol consumption did not return to pre-prohibition levels till the 70s. So for 40 years, our society kind of took a break. And it's not like prohibition. It wasn't, I always thought it was just because America's puritanical. Americans drank more than Europeans did, basically because they had more money, they had more free time, I don't know if they had more free time, but they worked hard and they played hard. I mean, the shortest work week isn't the United States. It's actually the Netherlands, I think. Europeans have a better work-life balance now. I'm not really sure what statistics I saw was the highest alcohol consumption was in Luxembourg, and part of that was because they're wealthy, so they got money to drink. I think it'd be the Russians, but yeah, the Russians are killing themselves with cheap vodka. It's like, Alexa, what is the average life expectancy in Russia?
The average life expectancy in Russia is 72 years.
Yeah, okay. Alexa, what is the average life expectancy for males in Russia?
The average lifespan of a man in Russia is 67 years.
Yeah. Alexa, what is the average life expectancy of an American male?
Here is what I found. From zippyfacts.com, the life expectancy of the average American man is 69 years, which means that the average American man lives to an age of 69.
That can't be right. Alexa, what is the average life expectancy in the United States?
The average life expectancy in the United States was about 78.8 years in 2015. Life expectancy for males was 76.3 years, and for females, life expectancy was 81.2 years.
All right, I don't know what that zippy thing was, but it was probably in the past. Okay, life expectancy for males in the United States is 76, and in Russia, I think it's what did you say? I'm not going to ask her again. 67. I'm hoping that's right. Now that's Alexa, and the AI doesn't. You get things wrong, Alexa.
I'd like to know what went wrong. If you want to give me more details, just say, I have feedback.
Alexa, you got the American male life expectancy wrong. You said 69, and then you corrected yourself and said 76. That's a little disconcerting there. Little bit.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
She's weird. Watch this. Alexa, I love you.
Thanks for saying I love you. You're just as sweet as pie. Know that I'll be here for you.
This is my life.
As always, your trusty AI.
It's like I got one friend and it's a robot. Just shoot me. But anyways, I shouldn't go on the internet and say hateful things. But I think I do that to like be a troll. And also I'm very, very frustrated. Maybe I am a little susceptible to propaganda on both sides. Maybe I should just stay away from it. Look, live and let live. You do you, and stay away from these things. But it seems like what did Bill Maher say? Because I think he was right. There are 4 political factions or parties in the United States. There's the old Republican Party. There's the old Democratic Party. Those groups are more in the center. And then you've got this extreme right-wing MAGA. People forget the Tea Party. These are still the Tea Party people that want to just do away with all government except like abortion laws and everything like that. So you've got moderate liberals and moderate conservatives. You've got people that are basically fascists on the right side. And I'm sorry, but the progressives, I don't think you are progressive. I think you're sort of neo-Marxist. I think you're sort of postmodern Jacobins, and I kind of like the Jacobins. There's this mob on both sides, the left and the right, that's just unthinking, and just is easily led by Sean Hannity or what was Bill O'Reilly or what's no not they're has-beens. What's this guy's name? Tucker Carlson. He's the big dude now. And then you've got that Breitbart guy, that Banyan or whatever. You've got these Pied Pipers of fascism, and then they use the word freedom. And then you've got the people on the left using the word progressive. And they all want to remake society in some sort of I mean, I hate to say it, but you don't realize what you're doing when you silence criticism. You're just like Marxists used to be. And Marxists in some ways were even worse than the fascists. They both hated each other and they both wanted to kill each other, but the result, and they weren't exactly the same. They did have very different values and very different ideals. But the result was the same: piles of corpses. And that's what happens when I've got to say this to myself too, because I get this like, you're not arrest them. You're not wearing a mask. No vaccines. You said something I don't like. I want you arrested because that's definitely not true. You've really got to fight. I've got to fight that myself. You've got to fight that temptation to shut people down just because sometimes because you know that what they're saying is absolute BS. Because do you really know? Who knows? You know? Like Lysenko, like the Marxists, it's against science. The Marxists had their own science, and that's why millions of people starved in China. Or in Ukraine, too. Lysenkoism was you plant crops closer together, and they will adopt the characteristics. They will metamorphize. You water them and give them a better environment. Those seeds will automatically have new characteristics. And that's not the way evolution works. Natural selection is like the reason white people have white skin. It was a vitamin deficiency in Northern Europe. People in their diets, because when they changed over during the agricultural revolution, had a vitamin D deficiency. Now, if your skin is pale, you can actually absorb vitamin D from the sun. See, so that's why all this is very pasty and unattractive. Our ancestors, 10, 15,000 years ago, were brown. They looked like they had the same color of skin as the Chinese or the Puerto Ricans or the North Africans. It was a vitamin deficiency, kind of like red hair. I mean, I like red hair, but people in Northern Europe developed tuberculosis, and the tuberculosis got in the gene and caused a defect, and that's why you got redheaded people now. I mean, it's not that redheaded people are defective, but I mean, uh, they've got no um, melanin, melatonin, the stuff that makes your skin, melanin, and so that's they get freckles and they burn really easy, and that's because they don't get enough sun. Anyways, long story short, I should just stay away. I'm sorry if you're watching this. If I said something that was very offensive, I was going to get really, really angry and say, bad you, bad, bad. I'm very concerned that I don't think that they should be teaching any. I don't think they should be making white kids feel guilty for being white. I think that's really, really bad. I've had people do that with me. Oh, you're German. You're a Nazi. Well, don't do that. Or you're white. You're automatically racist and responsible for 400 years of oppression. Look, the only thing my family did with slavery was volunteer to fight in the Civil War for the North, 103rd Ohio Volunteer Infantry. I'm pretty sure my great grandfather was in Atlanta when it burned, and he smoked cigars and he liked whiskey a little bit too much. So I could just imagine him going AWOL and burning down half of Atlanta. And he was kind of a mean, miserable drunk, from what I understood. Very bad temper. He wasn't like an abolitionist or anything, but they were immigrants, and they wanted to prove that they were loyal to this wonderful country that they'd come to, and they wanted to show that they were all for keeping the Union together. Because the interesting thing about the Civil War was, I think the original cause wasn't to free slaves; it was just to keep the Union together. And then finally, they got in a situation where they won, and they just said, you know what, we kind of were fighting over slavery, and you wanted to keep it, and we wanted to get rid of it because it's embarrassing, and so no more slavery, because we should have done that in 1776, and you've kind of been embarrassing us ever since, and we're never going to hear the end of it. Kind of like the Germans, they don't want to talk about the Nazis. What they do is they do something that the Japanese and the Turks don't do. The Turks won't admit about the Armenian genocide. They won't even talk about the fact that they killed all those poor Armenian people. The Japanese will not talk about what they did to the horrible things they did to the Chinese during World War II with Camp 369 or whatever. They had these camps where they experimented on the poor Chinese persons of Chineseness. It wasn't us. It was the Japanese, and they don't want to talk about it. They want to say it was the evil white person came in and they were fighting the imperial. I mean, not that we were so great, but we never performed medical experiments and things like that. And the Japanese won't even admit that they did all these things. Germany, they do teach the Holocaust in their schools. They say this is what your ancestors did, and it was terrible. Well, I think what they do is they say, not the majority wasn't behind this. Maybe they should have fought it a little more, but people were afraid to say anything because they didn't want to end up in a camp too. And it's like a terrible, terrible thing that happened in our country, and we never want it to happen again. We tore down all the statues of Hitler. It's like in Russia after they got rid of communism, they tore down most of the statues of Lenin and although I think Stalin's making a comeback, kind of. He is. I think he's kind of making a comeback. Kind of like our, Make America Great Again. They're having a nostalgic, remember when Russia was great? Uncle Joe made us proud. We were a world power, and people respected the hell out of us. It's like us going, yeah, I remember when we were great and we had segregation and lynchings and Ku Klux Klan and white people were just had it so good. Well, I don't think we ever had a Joseph Stalin. I mean, Eisenhower really wasn't that. Eisenhower was pretty good. Roosevelt was a reformer. Well, you want to go back to Warren G. Harding or Calvin Coolidge and Nixon? Nixon, they say, was the last of the liberals. They actually say that because he was the last one that proposed a big government solution. The Department of Energy, the Department of the. Do we have an Alexa? Do we have a Department of the Environment? Yeah, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Um, that's Nixon. He was very. I mean, the top income tax rate was 75%. He proposed a guaranteed minimum income back in the 70s, but the Democrats didn't think it was enough. I think it was like 10,000. How much was 10? Okay, let's do the inflation calculator because it couldn't have been $10,000. $10,000 was a lot of money in by year. I'm not a bad person. Don't hate me. You can't just hate people because you disagree with them. Why can't I learn this? And maybe someday socialism will work. But for now, the Nordic model seems to be the best system and provides a lot of freedom. Surprisingly, people with a good safety net seem to be able to do whatever they please and take risks they otherwise would not. Be able to out of fear of destitution. It really is a balanced system. All right. Inflation calculator by year. These things. Okay. 1970. $10,000 in 1970. If in 1970 I purchased an item for $10,000, say that item would cost 30. Oh, that can't be right. $78,000. Now that can't be right. We'll say 5,000. That's still 40 grand a year. Now Nixon was Eisenhower was a socialist. Nixon was a socialist by Bernie. The programs that were put into place, even under Republican, and they maintained the war on poverty. The government played a much bigger role. Although things were much more socially, it was more along social conservatism. I mean, I think Obama was like against gay marriage, even in 2008. Our culture has just changed so quickly. I mean, even with abortion, people wouldn't come out for it. That was the Supreme Court that all of a sudden said, yeah, you can't do this. It's none of your business. That wasn't done in most countries. Abortion was legalized by legislation. In Ireland, which was a very, very Catholic, conservative country where abortion was against the law by the Constitution, gay sex was illegal. Gay marriage was legalized. Alexa, when was gay marriage legalized in Ireland?
Same-sex marriage was legalized in Ireland in 2015.
Okay. Alexa, when was abortion legalized in Ireland?
Here is an answer from an Alexa Answers contributor that I translated. Year 1921.
Alexa, when was abortion legalized in Ireland?
Here is an answer from an Alexa Answers contributor that I translated. Year 1921.
No, I'm afraid that's not right. Okay, when? When was abortion legalized in Ireland? People thought it never would be because it was so illegal. It was just so totally illegal. Okay, 1 January 2019, Health Regulation of Termination of Pregnancy Act 2018. It was signed by the President of Ireland 20 December 2018 after being approved by both houses of the Oireachtas. Legalizing abortion services commenced 1st of January 2019, which is like 4 years ago. Oh yeah, the referendum, the 2002 referendum. Narrowly defeated 50 to 49. Okay, there was a 2002 referendum. Huh. I thought there was some kind of referendum. Irish referendum. Okay, here we go. Irish referendum. So see that if you ever want to know what I do for a living, which is like really nothing, I'm early retirement. This is what I do. I 36th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland. Okay. Oh, so okay. The 36th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland, previously Bill number 29, is an amendment to the Constitution of Ireland which permits Oireachtas to legislate for abortion. The Constitution had previously prohibited abortion unless there was a serious risk to the life of the mother. Okay, so 66%, yeah. So let the government decide this, and we'll elect the government. The referendum was approved by 66% of the voters. Go Ireland. God, the Irish are just so cool. They went from being super conservative to being super liberal. They're even more liberal than my people. The Dutch, I mean, are kind of, with the legalization of marijuana and suicide and everything like that. But I think they had this large Muslim population. They became, I wouldn't say anti-immigrant, but there's like a lot of these countries like Sweden and Denmark and Germany and the Netherlands, because of the violence and the Islamic extremism, and there were real legitimate problems, like Pim Fortuyn. They just decided they'd had enough, and they became very, very anti-immigrant. Send them all home. One guy suggested that they just ban the Islamic religion as Nazism. Ban the Nazis, ban the communists, and ban the Muslims. Which is like, but who decides that, right? It's like the paradox of tolerance. You don't want to tolerate intolerant people, but most people are intolerant. So you're going to end up making everything illegal. But you got to have some kind of limits. You can't let violent people run around killing you just because you said Muhammad was a pedophile, which he was, and a warmonger. Probably get in trouble for saying that. I'm not a big fan of any religion, but Islamic extremism. But what they must think of us. And now that I'm an hour and 23 minutes in, I don't think J.K. Rowling is a transphobe. I don't think John Cleese is a transphobe. I think what these people are, they're from an older generation of liberals, and they're just sick and tired of being bullied by extremists. They're actually being honest enough to stand up to this cancel culture bullshit where you're not even allowed to disagree about anything. You got to stop that because you're going to turn everybody against you. You think that you've got everybody on your side, but that's because you live in an echo chamber, and you got to stop. Someone has to be brave enough, and since I'm not really employed any place anymore, Someone has to be brave enough to stand up to you and say, look, enough of this crazy bullshit. You do whatever you want, but you don't get to teach it in the schools. You don't get to, has the Swedes and the Finns, they're the ones that started this, and they put a moratorium on it because they've looked at the data and they've said, oh boy, we might have made a mistake here. Boy, this doesn't look good. The results aren't positive. We're not helping people. I mean, these surgeries, they cause infections. You have to take hormones. The hormones cause cancer. A lot of people, the suicide rate doesn't go down. It goes up. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen studies that say it goes up, and I think that a lot of the leftists are bullying the scientific community and silencing people. Now, I'm not going to say that's the way it is, because I have no, I can't say that like I have secret knowledge or I'm just so smart. That's what I suspect. That's what I suspect. I suspect that. So, all right. All right. Enough of my fooling around with my laser beam. I shouldn't fool around with my laser beam. When I say my laser beam, I mean my little flashlight, and it is little. I shouldn't do that in public. That's I'm sorry, that's not polite. That's kind of creepy. No playing with the flashlight. Well, the camera's on. So anyways, I think that you are making a big mistake calling centrist people homophobes and going after people. People have a right to say, you know what, and this is true, you're not a real woman. I don't know what you are. I feel sympathy for you. I think we need to find a place for you in society, but you shouldn't be playing with the girls because you'll hurt them, because you still have those big male muscles. We've got to find a place. Maybe you can have your own little, sporting thing, but you're not biologically female. You can't have kids. I don't know what you are. I don't want to hate you. But you can't force people to accept you. I think it's fine for you to say, look, we just want to be left alone. Don't kill us. But that's not what you're doing. It's like you're taking a stick and you're poking the bear. You're like poking a bear or a pit bull and saying, why can't you be more tolerant? You're going to the least tolerant portions of society and you're daring them, which is suicidal. And then you're bullying anybody that has any questions about this crazy shit that you're doing, I think J.K. Rowling's right. You're not really women. You don't menstruate. You don't understand how hard it was to be a woman. You were born privileged. Most of you are white males. What?
This is a reminder. Water the flowers.
All right. Alexa, stop. Alexa, is it raining? Alexa, is it raining?
It might rain today. There's a 59% chance at 10 a.m.
No, well, forget it then. I'm not going to water. Be stupid me out there watering when there's a 59. I got to pee, so I'm going to hang up. But this is the thing. I'm not like some fascist Nazi that wants to round you up and exterminate you. But I agree with John Cleese, and I love Life of Brian. I can't believe that you're going to censor that. I love Life of Brian. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but I think J.K. Rowling has a right to say what she wants to say, and I think it's wrong that you're calling her a transphobe. That Geraldine whatchamacallit, I think it's terrible you're going after him. You won't have... I think the reason why you're being so hysterical is because you realize you're wrong, and you just can't debate. This is all about your feelings. You feel like you're a woman. You want to commit suicide because you're in the wrong body. I think a lot of this is a fad. I think there's a very small number of people that are born intersex, hermaphrodite, intersex, their gonads are defective. They got male hormone. They got male gonads and female gonads. You know, one tit's huge and the other's kind of malformed. These are things that you need surgery for. Like they're real, tangible things that need to be corrected. And then you've got people that have serious psychological issues. I don't want to say you're messed up in the head because then you call me a transphobic bigot. But let's face it, it is a you're mental. There's something mentally off when you're a boy and you want to be a girl, or you're a girl and you want to be a boy. There's something that needs to be resolved there. Maybe you're just gay. So be gay. Don't get the surgery. You don't have to mutilate yourself because you might change your mind and want to have kids later or something. I don't know. I think this is something that's for a very, very, very small number of people, and it's been hoisted on society by a bunch of know-it-alls. And sociology really isn't a science. By a bunch of know-it-alls that think they know it all. And I don't think it's scientifically based. I really don't. I think it's this postmodern leftist, you know, Marxism's dead, so now what? How do we fuck up society? And I'm in a weird situation because I'm kind of old school. I'm kind of sad that socialism didn't work. It didn't, but I mean, you know, so like the Nordic model. I'm not like hyper pro-capitalism. And I think a lot of this neoliberalism has led to this hyper individualism that's led to like the 3%ers and the militia crazies, and then you've got people dressing up like women that eat a lot of soy, and then they all hate each other and they all want to kill each other. I think we need a bigger government to keep us together, and I think these extremes need to be, I don't want to say made illegal, but they should be curbed. We should do something about these gun people. Make them get a license or something. They're just too dangerous running around with the guns. And people that keep guns in their house, you're not protecting your family. 9 times out of 10, you shoot the dog, or you shoot your kid, or you get depressed and you shoot yourself. I mean, if you really feel you need a gun for self-defense, you should have to take a heap of training courses. Not just, and now you just buy the gun and walk around with it. And that's idiotic. You have to have a license to have a car. You have to have a license to be a professional driver. The average person is an idiot. He does need to be controlled. But sort of, I'm more of a liberal elite. I feel that there should be a benevolent nanny state. I don't believe we should knock people over the heads and return people to traditional sex roles or whatever. I'm not like right wing. I'm more like an elitist liberal in that sense. But I'm not for all this crazy left wing BS either. You know, like the making white people feel guilty when we didn't own slaves, and most of us aren't racists. Most of us want to get along. I mean, why make us feel bad, or our kids feel bad? So I'm not saying that they shouldn't teach race theory, but I mean they should be very careful about that, because that can cause people to attack white people. And being white myself, I don't want to feel guilty. I want to feel like I'm a good guy. You know, my family hid Jews. My family fought for the North to end slavery. I want to feel like I'm a hero. I don't want to feel like I was responsible for 400 years of oppression, because I'm not 400 years old. I haven't known any slaves. And as far as the 40 acres and a mule goes, I don't have a mule and I don't have 40 acres. So how about that? Got a car in the garage. I can't drive it because I can't afford the insurance. All right. So you're not. So that's it. You know what? What do you want? A cookie? I don't know. What do you want from me? Bagels and cream cheese. Spare ribs. I don't know what you want. I really don't know what you want from me. A Christmas card, a gift card. Maybe I can send you a gift certificate next Kwanzaa. I don't know. I'm sorry you hate me. I mean, hopefully you don't. But it's like, you know what? The Jews got reparations for the Holocaust, that generation, because that generation got exterminated. But I think this whole reparation thing is, if you survived, that was your reparation. If you lived long enough to be liberated from slavery, that was your reparation. You got to live in this country and not in Liberia or some place where you're going to starve to death or get eaten by a lion. That was your reparation. The war on poverty was kind of the reparations. They made us a sincere attempt to help poor people. But I think at some point people have to stop putting their hands out and say, what are you going to do for us? And you just say, you know what, you live in the United States. You have a lot of opportunity. We're going to do everything we can to avoid discrimination. But it's up to you. You know, free stuff will keep you from starving. But if you want to be rich and have a car and a middle-class life, you know, you get off your ass and you work. No one's going to give it to you. Nobody gave it to my ancestors when they came over and they were immigrants and they got treated like crap. And they did. They were Catholic and nobody wanted the Catholics. They thought the Pope was going to run, although we're not now. I mean, I kind of see their point, really. Not a big fan of the Catholic Church myself. My grandfather became a Presbyterian because all the blonde. This is true, but nobody wants. This sounds stupid. It's like a family secret. All the little blonde girls were down at the Presbyterian, and my grandfather had a thing for blonde chicks. So, and they weren't at the Catholic Church, so they were awful. What are Presbyterians? Are they Scottish? I used to go to the Church of the Bethany Covenant, and they were Swedes. I remember a lot of little blonde girls running around. But you couldn't do anything because it was Sunday school, you know, and that was like, do unto others. Treat people everybody. And, you know, that's the thing, the golden rule. Just treat everybody nicely the way you want to be treated, and that's fine. But the whole thing about teaching all this, they should be teaching kids in school how to read and write and just leave all this social crap. When they're adults, they can figure it out for themselves. But this is really indoctrination. And the only people that get to indoctrinate kids, and you just pray that they're not Nazis, the only people that get to indoctrinate kids are their parents. All right? That's not your job. If you want to indoctrinate kids, you have some of your own. Public school is for teaching people skills so that they can get a job or they can function in the world, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, science, just so they can. And basically you teach people critical reasoning. You teach them how to think. Because I think that's a big problem in the United States now. People are too easily swayed because they don't know how to think critically so that they can assimilate information and weed out the chaff and just stick with the good stuff. People thinking the election was faked, that Donald Trump is being persecuted by a weaponized FBI. And now that I've been talking for almost 2 hours, I would just like to say that I'm so happy that Donald Trump is being prosecuted. I don't think the FBI is weaponized. I don't think it's biased towards one side or the other. I think Biden is perfect. His kid, I think, is being indicted and probably should be because it sounds to me like he's got drug problems and he's kind of a shady character there. It's like everybody's family had him. Nixon had a shady brother. Jimmy Carter had Billy Carter. He was he was a drunk and he used racist language. He was very much an embarrassment. Every family, you can't arrest the whole family because it has one messed up member. I think Biden was wrong with he had those confidential documents, but he cooperated. He says, oops. As soon as they found out, he was very cooperative. Mike Pence was very cooperative, even though he had the documents. And he's like very conservative. He seems like such a likable guy. I wish he wasn't just such a reactionary and so religious. But he seems like a sweet guy otherwise. Is there anybody else? Biden, Pence. Oh, Hillary. Hillary, I'm going to be careful because I know a lot of people that really like her. I voted for her, but I do not like Hillary Clinton anymore because of what she did to Bernie. I think both her and Bill are pills. They're very Machiavellian characters. And I think she kind of has that thing that Trump had, where I'm above these rules. I can just do whatever I want. But I do what you want with her. I've got no I've got no percentage in that. It's like I don't admire her. And you're right about the Clintons. They changed the Democratic Party to being neoliberal. By the way, they took it in the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. But that was a trend back then. Maybe they're just going with the flow. But I don't really think the Clintons are honest people, are idealistic. Maybe they were at one time, but I think they're like the Trumps. They're very mercenary people that are in it for the money. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning. This is Angelo from Peerway Health. Is this Mr. William Dykeman?
No.
Oh,
Wrong number. Well, that was stupid. I think I might be related to him, though. Oh, fuck, is he using my phone number again? That guy's such a nut. He thinks that's cute. All right, oh well, I don't care. Oh, what was I saying? Yes. Yeah, the Clintons. I don't really think they're great people. Um, Bernie, I like Bernie, but yeah, I don't think he misrepresents the Nordic model like he wants to. Well, I mean, the Danes have a very high capital gains tax rate. That's right, but corporate income tax rates in Alexa, what's the corporate income tax rate in Denmark?
Denmark's corporate tax rate is 22%.
Yeah, I mean it's about what ours is. It might even be lower. I mean, corporate tax rates used to be, I mean, like in Ireland, for example, in the 60s, it used to be 50%. You can imagine that. Alexa, what's the corporate income tax rate in Ireland?
Ireland's corporate tax rate is 12.5%.
Yeah, that's like nothing. That's why they did so well. All the businesses moved to Ireland. Of course, they have free upper education, and the European Union gave them money so they have an excellent infrastructure. Can't believe that asshole is using my phone number again. See, this is what we're talking about, right? With you've got one person in your family, they're on drugs, they're good for nothing, they never worked a day in their life. They just give everybody a bad name, and everybody else in the family is. Well, to be honest about my family, everybody else in my family is quite virtuous. It's kind of like I'm proud of being from a. None of them have drug problems. They all have jobs. They all are honest, decent, middle class people. None of them are hateful. Very moderate people. And the only people that are in my family that are embarrassing and me and that asshole is using my phone again. Is he homeless? What is he? I'm not taking messages for him. That's it. So that's my point. That's a good point. You got one person in your family that causes so much trouble. You don't cause any trouble. I thought he was in a mental hospital. I know he was for a while. He's dangerous. I know he used to have automatic weapons till the police took them away from him. He's I hope he doesn't come knocking on my door again. I can't have that. We want to talk about a political wingnut. I mean, what is a national anarchist, anyways? He doesn't like the government, but what's a national Bolshevik? I don't know. I mean, you think my political beliefs are out of whack, but he used to do a lot of LSD back in the 80s, and maybe he thinks he's me. I don't know why he's using my telephone number. Oh, God. It's if I don't have enough problems now. I got to deal with him. Oh, I don't want to call the police on him again. The last time they had to taser him, and it was just awful. Oh, shoot. Now I got a broken chair. See, someone else put this chair together for me. And they were really nice because I'm too fat to like. And then I broke. Being fat, I broke it. Oh, fudge. I guess I'm gonna have to do this every couple days. But who am I going to complain to? People are nice to me. And did I buy this chair? I think I bought the chair and they put it together for me. I think the weight limit on this chair is like, I got to pee. All right, just hang out. Son of a bitch is using my phone. Alexa, stop. Alexa, is it raining?
It might rain today. There's a 59% chance at 10 a.m. Would you also like to check for rain tomorrow?
Yeah, why not?
It might rain in Lyndhurst tomorrow. There's a 61% chance. You can expect about 0.12 inches.
All right. What the hell is a national anarchist? Yeah, I do miss having conversations with him, but they always end up broken bottles. Idiot pulling a gun. See, this is one of the reasons why this is why I'm for gun control. It's too easy for really, really, really sick people to get a hold of guns. And this is that one relative, he's dangerous. It's like, would you please come around and protect me? It's like, no, you don't want to do that because it's like having a gun in the house. It's like, is this person going to protect me? No, he's going to. National anarchism is a radical right-wing nationalist ideology which advocates racial separation, racial nationalism, ethnic nationalism, and racial purity. Ooh. National anarchists claim to syncretize neo-tribal ethnic nationalism with philosophical anarchism, mainly their support for a stateless society while rejecting anarchist social philosophy. The main ideological innovation of national anarchism is anti-state palingenetic ultranationalism. Palingenetic ultranationalism. Genetic, I guess, based on genetics. National anarchists advocate homogeneous communities in place of nation state. National anarchists claim that those of different ethnic and racial groups would be free to develop separately in their own tribal communes while striving to be politically horizontal, economically non-capitalist, ecologically sustainable, and socially and culturally traditional. The term national anarchist dates back to the 1920s. The contemporary national anarchist movement has been put forward since the 1990s by British neo-Nazi Troy Southgate, who positions it as being beyond left and right. Wow. Milton. National anarchism has elicited skepticism and outright hostility from both left-wing and right-wing critics. Critics accuse national anarchists of being ethno-nationalists who promote communitarian and racialist form of ethnic and racial separation while wanting the militant chic of calling themselves anarchists. Terrorist chic. All right, great. Anti-racist egalitarian philosophy and contributions of Jewish anarchists have to accompany such a claim. Philosophical baggage. Well, there was the original anarchist was kind of a racist. What's his name? Proudhon? No, that's not him. French anarchist. He was very much a rabid anti-Semite. Anarchism in France. Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. Proto-fascism. Although long considered a founding father of anarchism and part of the French left, some have tried to link him to the extreme right. He was the first used as reference of Cercle Proudhon, a right-wing association formed in 1911 by Georges Valzoie and Edward Berth. Both had been brought together by the syndicalist Georges Sorel, but they would tend toward a synthesis of socialism and nationalism, mixing Proudhon's mutualism with Charles Maurras' integralist nationalism. In 1925, Georges Valzoie founded the FASCIU, a fascist league which took its name from Benito Mussolini's Fasci. Steve Stemhihi, historian of fascism, in particular of French fascism, noted this use by Proudhon by the far right. Action Française, from its inception, regarded the author of La Philosophie de la Miserie as one of its masters. He was given a place of honor in a weekly section of journal movement entitled precisely Our Masters. Proudhon owed this place in L'Action Française to what the Mauresians saw as his anti-republicanism, his anti-Semitism, his loathing for Rousseau, his disdain for the French Revolution, democracy, parliamentarianism, and his championship of the nation, the family, tradition, and monarchy? In response, Kay Stevenson states, to argue that Proudhon was a proto-fascist suggests that no one ever looked seriously at Proudhon's writings. Wow. Yeah, see, this stuff gets complicated and confusing. It's all very interesting, but I think the thing is, the further you get away from the center, the more crazy you get. And you can't silence people with a name. Transphobe. Anybody you don't like is a transphobe. Just because they said something that you don't agree with. And I will agree with J.K. Rowling and John Cleese. You may want to be a woman, but you can never be a woman. We'll fight for your right to have babies. For your right. Your battle against depression. Oh, what's that last line is battle against reality. I'm sorry, but I think you're battling against reality. And that's why you get so hysterical when people question you, is you really can't justify it. You can't. I'm sorry, you just can't. And I would like to sit down and have an intelligent conversation with somebody. I'm just afraid that with even more, I think more with the extreme left than the extreme right, that if you sat down with somebody, that they'd attack you, that they would physically attack me. That's why I always carry a weapon now. Something, a taser, some mace, a baseball bat, just a little something. I don't want to kill you, but if you attack me, isn't that neat? Just a little. It's black, so it fits in with what I'm wearing. And it's so fucking sharp. I mean, it's almost too sharp. I keep cutting myself with it. I tried shaving with it. That wasn't a good thing. I almost cut my ear off. But yeah, talking is one thing. But if you get physical with me, I'm going to stick you. All right, I'll perform a little surgery on you. You know, pre-operational surgery. You got something you want cut off, I'll cut it off for you. So don't take a swing. All right. If you raise your voice, that's fine. If you want to yell, but if you throw something at the house or at me, I'll fucking kill you. But that's self-defense. You can call me all the names you want. You can even threaten me. I don't even care about that. Just don't threaten any. Well, you can threaten that lame-ass cousin of mine who's just making life absolutely miserable for everybody around here. See, that's what drugs will do to you. They hit him on antipsychotics. I mean, he stayed here for a while. But I mean, after my dad died, I told him, you know what? He might have put up with you, but I'm not. You're just gonna have to. I don't want to deal with. I don't want to deal with crazy people. I don't even know whether he's left wing or right wing. All I know is he's crazy. He says crazy things. He says violent things. He says hateful things, and I don't want him around. And that's the way I feel about the left and the right now. I just don't want you around. I don't want you teaching in the schools. Maybe in a private school, but public schools, I don't think you should be in there. I don't think people on the right should be teaching hate and bigotry in the schools. I think parents have a right not to have their kids taught about Heather has two mommies, or are you a boy that wants to be a little girl, or a little girl that wants to be a boy. I think that's not something in the public system. I think that should not be there. I hate to say it, but I think maybe these laws that ban transitioning before you're 18, I don't want to say I'm for them, but I think unless it's a really extreme case, I think maybe that might not be a bad thing. Okay. I know you're going to get mad and call me all kinds of names, but I think I've got a right to say that. Because this is nothing, this is very, people don't, this is not a truth that, you know, that you're a boy that's trapped in a girl's body or vice versa. A lot of this is just kids. Like this one story, I'll just tell one story that kind of illustrates this. There was a family, and one day the little boy, he's about 3 or 4, and he comes to his parents, says, I want to be a little girl. I'm tired of being a little boy. I want to be a little girl now. Can you help me with this? And they took him to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist says, well, you got a daughter, don't you? And they go, yeah. And he spent a lot of time with her because she's special needs. We used to call it retarded, but you can't say retarded anymore. So she has special needs. Because of these special needs, they spent so much time on this little girl, because rightfully so, because she had special needs. You know, she had needs. The little boy didn't understand that. He wanted that attention too, and he thought that the little girl was getting the attention because she was a girl. It wasn't. It was because she was intellectually challenged, and usually there are physical ramifications too. He's a kid. He didn't do anything wrong. Kids want attention. He didn't understand what it meant to be a little girl. He had no idea. And I think that's a lot with kids now. They just don't understand what the transitioning is. They're being pushed in it because it's a fad. Everybody wants to, the left wants to own the right and the right wants to own the left, and nobody wants to sit down and have a rational conversation about any of this stuff. And that's all I think I basically, maybe teenagers when they're like in high school, they can talk about this stuff. But why are you teaching it to kindergartners? I try to be liberal. I try to be open-minded. But I'm kind of like John Cleese and J.K. Rowling. What the hell do you think you're doing? And everybody's so afraid of you, afraid to say anything with all this crazy ass shit you're pushing on society, and people have to be afraid that you're gonna come and punch them or burn their house down. Like I said, that's not a good idea, because it's just Cleveland, Ohio, and I know people. All right, so you can call me all the names you want and do whatever stupid dumbass crap you want. Don't think you're gonna. There's nothing to cancel. I don't have a job. I don't have anything. I don't own anything. I think my dad left me some money, but other people are like taking care of me, you know. So I'm like I got an excuse, you know. Let's just say I have multiple personalities, and you don't know which one you're gonna deal with. They're around here somewhere. Don't really care. Don't really care. I need to find something else to do, though. I really do, because I don't know how productive this is. I mean, I know some people make money doing stuff on YouTube. I can be funny sometimes, but only like in short spurts, and you never know when it's going to pop out. All of a sudden, I'm funny. I'm telling a joke, and people are laughing about my name or family names or things that make me neurotic. I can be funny about the 400-pound thing too. Although it's not funny being 400 pounds. I wish I could lose weight. Alexa, is it raining?
It might rain today. There's a 59% chance at 10 a.m.
All right, so maybe I'll wait and hold off on the watering. Boy, this is going to take a long time to upload. And I doubt anybody will ever see it anyways. I don't know why I post. It's like putting a message in a bottle. A lot of things frustrate me, and I probably shouldn't get upset about them. I'm kind of happy about Trump being prosecuted, so that's good. I hope he doesn't get reelected. They say that temporarily it's going to make him more popular, but I think once it sinks in that this guy has so much baggage, I mean that he's actually a criminal, and they realize that it's not just being persecuted. I mean, why didn't they go after Pence? Why didn't they go? I mean, why did they? If they're just one-sided, why are they indicting Hunter Biden? And it's over a relatively minor thing. He lied on a gun permit. I guess in some states you have to get a license or a permit to own a gun, which I think is a good idea, by the way. I don't think Hunter Biden should have a gun if he's got a drug problem. Maybe they should put Hunter Biden in jail. If he's done something wrong, put Hunter Biden in jail, please. But to say that the system is biased in favor of the Democrats, I really don't see that. I don't think Biden's really a crook. His kid might be, but that's his kid. Now, if you're watching this, if for some reason, and you've got children, and some of them grew up to be like a drug addict or some kind of no-good-nick that's involved in crime, or they're a bum and they don't go to work, maybe they steal hubcaps off of cars, or they break into people's houses, or maybe they made it up the ladder like this guy with the crypto. What was his name? Alexa, who is that guy that got arrested for the crypto, you know?
From Forbes.com, NBC, ABC News, and the New York Daily News, citing information from unnamed law enforcement officials, reported that the rapper, whose legal name is Willie Jr. Maxwell II, was arrested Thursday.
No, not him. Who is the crypto wizard who got arrested in the Cayman Islands? He has curly black hair, and his name's Berger, or I don't know. Alexa, who is the guy that got arrested in the Cayman Islands for tax evasion off of crypto?
From RiskScreen.com, BitGick founders Bruce Bees and Samuel Mendez were charged with tax evasion in August.
I think it was like a Ponzi scheme. I can't remember his name. I just know he's like a goofy looking little nerd and he had curly hair. And he was worse than Bernie Madoff. He never even tried to pay people off. He just used it to throw big parties and get influence. I mean, that's the thing. He bought influence so that crypto would remain unregulated. Just an absolute psychopath. Sociopath. And his parents, I think, were in finance or professors. Think how embarrassed they must be to have this kid, you know. So, I mean, is it Biden's fault that his kid is a bad egg? I mean, he has one bad egg kid. Was it Jimmy Carter's fault that his brother Billy was a drunken loser of a bigot? I can't remember Nixon, but I think Nixon had a brother or a stepbrother who was absolute loser. Every family has one or two. I'm not quite the worst, but because I behave myself. I don't drink anymore. I should really go to work though. I kind of lost my job, the volunteer position, but I don't do it because somebody got me fired for talking about this subject. If you can believe that, they got me fired, so I don't really work there anymore. Thanks for that. That definitely made. I said there were three genders. There were men, there were women, and there are people that need to see a psychiatrist. That's it. Somehow they found out where I worked and they tried to get me fired. You're not making allies when you do shit like that. Let me tell you, that doesn't make me any more sympathetic to your cause. That kind of made me. That was a kind of a joke. It was kind of. I mean, people can say things like that. I mean, people used to be able to tell like Polish jokes. I mean, not that I'm Polish, but I mean, you can't tell Polish jokes anymore. Like when I was a kid, there was a joke. What's the joke? Oh yeah, Parma. There was a raffle on the West Side, and first prize was a weekend in Parma. Second prize was a week in Parma. And the third prize was that you got to live there forever. That was a joke about Parma. What was another one I heard about the Polish airline pilots who landed a plane and they go, "My God, that was the shortest runway ever." And the other one says, "Yeah, but wasn't it wide? Wasn't it really wide?" You used to be able to tell good-natured, fun jokes. Now you can't do anything. You can't say anything. You can't use words. You can't even make even minor legitimate criticisms without everybody jumping in your back and calling you all sorts of names like transphobe and homophobe and this phobe and that phobe. Look. Grow up. It's the real world. You having human rights doesn't mean that nobody can criticize you or say anything bad about you, especially when you're doing questionable things. I mean, if you're interested in the science of this, look into Sweden and Finland put a moratorium on transitioning kids, and they started all this whole thing. And they're being very quiet about it, but there's a moratorium and they just don't do it anymore. For I don't know how long. Swedish moratorium on sex transition. They used to call it sex change. Now it's transitioning. Yeah, sex transitioning. I don't practice idolatry. What's this? Uh-oh. Oh, wait. Did I get censored on Reddit again? Oh, I'm just having fun. Wow. I mean, people should be able to make asinine comments. I mean, it's just like there's so much censorship now. Swedish more. Okay. Okay. I know they've got. Okay, here it is. Swedish U-turn on gender transitioning children. Canadian Gender Report. Gender reassignment of children is a big experiment. Hundreds of children with gender dysphoria are subjected every year to treatment with hormones and then genital mutilation completely without reasonable basis in terms of science, proven experience, and often without ethical review. Professor Christopher Gilberg and others at the University of Gothenburg write this. Sweden has officially ended the practice of prescribing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors under the age of 18. They have recognized the experimental nature of treating minors with puberty blockers and hormones and have established new protocols that deviate significantly from WPATH and the professional associations that the Canadian government and healthcare authorities are listening to. You can access the official documents and read more at the summary published by the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine. Original post. Is gender transition medically necessary? The graph below shows all referrals to gender clinics in Sweden. The inverted U shape of the curve is extremely interesting. Referrals to gender clinics fell off a cliff in 2019. Why? And why no rebound? Does a Swedish experience tell us something about the hype and potential disillusionment surrounding the practice of medically transitioning children? I don't want to have religion placed in this debate. I don't. I don't want emotion or ideology on the left. And a lot of the stuff coming from the left is not science-based. It's postmodernism, and it's I hate to sound like Jordan Peterson, but it's this postmodern neo-Marxist, and they're two separate things. Postmodernism and neo-Marxism are two separate things. Postmodernism is kind of like after Marxism. Marxism is like, yeah, we figured everything out. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mean, Marxists are like, all right, well, we really screwed that up, but we won't even talk about that. We'll make an excuse and say that capitalism cheated, as if there's any cheating when you're dealing with such high stakes. You lost, commies. Your system collapsed. It wasn't any good, and you're just making. You got Sputnik, the T-34 tank, and you built a nice wall around Berlin. That was a really good wall. It kept, but the purpose of the wall was not a good purpose. But you did manage to build a wall. You got the Trabant. I mean, the Germans made the Mercedes-Benz, and the best you could do was make a Trabant. Sorry you have to see this, but it's OCD. Oh, God. See, the worms are eating my brain. Let us stick with the science. Let's avoid the Lysenkoism or the dogmatic leftist mob, mantra that everybody's got to be trans now, and that if all a kid has to do is say, I feel like I'm in the wrong body, and all of a sudden you got to put them on hormones. We don't let them drink. We don't let them smoke. We don't let them drive cars. We don't let them work, or we didn't. I guess they're changing the laws in Iowa. We're going backwards, not forwards, on both sides. Everything is going crazy. I don't understand the world. But I do know this, that the Swedes have changed policy on this because they've looked at the data and they're pretty horrified. It was an experiment, and this was another one of these social experiments that didn't work out. And maybe in 20, 30 years, you'll be on to something else, trying to turn us all into Martians or something. But this is not good. Please, try to look in on the science and try to realize that if you've got mental problems, maybe you should be dealing with them in a different way. Look, if you want to pretend you're a girl, fine. That's fine. Wear the dress, Don't try to fool anybody, because that's not nice. But don't expect everyone to what was that? What was that lesbian? It says I'm a lesbian, and if you're a trans female with a penis, don't expect me to date you or have sex with you. You're still a man, and I want to be a lesbian, and I want to be with other lesbians that are real lesbians. And I don't know what you are, but you're not for me. And then all of a sudden you don't feel like you're normal. Well, that's because you're not normal. I'm not normal. What is normal? But for the love of God, you've got to stop trying to push this on kids. And you're not happy. Your suicide rate, even after it, you're not a happy, healthy bunch. You don't live as long. Those hormones are killing you. They're ruining your bones. They're going to give you cancer or cirrhosis. There's so many problems with the hormones and the treatment and the infections you get. And you don't tell the kids about it before they transition. There are just so many things wrong with this. And you won't even have a rational conversation. And we need to.